Hi-ho, neighbors. Jack O'Malley here with you with a Wednesday update. Today is Wednesday, isn't it? I'm telling you, days and months and weeks are all kind of blending together here. So bear with me. Tonight, I'm going to call it a lightning round because I've got quite a few things that I want to touch on. I'll get to them in a second, but I just today, in the last couple of days, been busy. This morning I was on a conference call with some folks in district who are very involved in child care issues. I have those bills that we're working through, so talking with folks from the 101st about child care. Also discussing, if you remember Monday's update, talking about emergency management. Also had a conversation today with a prosecuting attorney. He's got some idea for legislation that will help protect the community from child predators. So I think that's important. Hang on one second here. Hello. I'm gonna close the door. Gotta love a live video. Oh my goodness. The cleaning folks are coming in, and my baskets are fine. Anyway, so talking with this prosecutor who has got some ideas on how to protect the community from child predators. So I think that's great. So those are all the things. And then we've got all the things that are happening. So this is the lightning round. Some of this is from a couple of days ago, but I just want to touch base on them and give you my thoughts. All right, so we're going to move through them. You may have heard the governor vetoed legislation to give the medical community and nursing homes broad immunity protections against potential lawsuits and legal suits with regards to COVID-19 treatment. That was vetoed by our governor. Some say the bill went too far, protecting any health provider for basically any conduct for an extended period of time. Michigan Chamber of Commerce Vice President Wendy Block said the action was not unexpected as legislative Democrats opposed the bill through the latter half of the process. Still, she said her members are disappointed because she said some of the rhetoric used against the bill was inaccurate. You think? All right, something else that's interesting. The governor vetoed legislation to give medical immunity and nursing homes broad immunity protection against potential lawsuits. Half of the state's documented COVID-19 ongoing outbreaks are tied to skilled nursing facilities and other long-term adult care centers, according to data provided by the Department of Health and Human Services. There were 94 ongoing outbreaks tied to nursing facilities, long-term care, and other adult centers out of the total of 187 ongoing outbreaks through the week of July 25 through 31. The next largest category for outbreaks was social gatherings. Further down the list, employee-associated restaurant outbreaks, religious services had 4, and employee-associated bar outbreaks were at 3. Now, with that, the director of the Michigan Licensed Beverage Association said the number of outbreaks for bars is very low, and yet we've been asked to shut down once again. Remember, if a bar with 70% or more in alcohol sales has to close, yet it's virtually none being reported there. There was the one bar in Lansing that had a huge thing that was early on. My point is, we talk about science and data. Well, bars are being closed, and the science and data shows they're not a problem. But we react when there was one definite oopsie with 100 some cases. Most definitely, that was an outlier. But we've closed businesses because we think that that's probably not a good place to be when the outbreaks aren't there. Another source of ongoing outbreaks tracked through the state, including manufacturing, construction, other office settings, agricultural, food processing, and migrant camps with 8. Now, this is another interesting one. I've talked to some of the ag folks in my district, and they've said, we've got migrant workers coming in. And you got to remember something about migrant workers, ladies and gentlemen. This is something I've learned since coming into office. That, you think of somebody who's coming up from Mexico or wherever, and they come and do. These men and women are as professional workers as any other professional. They come, they work, they make their money, and then they go home. So our migrant workforce, say what you will, they are professionals. They work hard. And the problem is, once again, nobody is necessarily, and so what they have to do is any new worker, they have to test them, they have to segregate them for 14 days in housing. The problem with that is, once again, the governor is behind. In Michigan, the harvest has begun. Where were these rules a month ago? We all knew they were coming. Once again, our government is dragging its feet, getting these things out there and hurting. And I've talked to some of the growers and producers in my district. They're having a hard enough time finding workers, let alone these issues. So again, I just say, maybe not a bad idea, just very tardy in its implementation, and that's hurting our food processing. Just another thing to consider when you hear about all of this stuff going on. Oh yeah, well, it's probably not a bad idea to do that with migrant workers. Well, when was it instituted? Right in the middle of harvest? Why not have that ahead of time? That's what I want you to start thinking deeper into these things, as opposed to just reading the headline and going, gosh, that sounds good. Maybe not. This is another thing I've talked about before. We heard surge, outbreak. Define it. What is it? Okay? So one of the things that I've tried to do over these many months is to get people to think a little deeper. So if you just read the headlines, if you just hear the rhetoric, you can be fearful. COVID. I don't want COVID. Let's all agree, nobody wants COVID, right? Nobody wants it. It's not good. The key to remember when you're reading those headlines is COVID is not an automatic death sentence, right? Death numbers continue to decline in the state of Michigan. Cases might be going up, but again, we've got more people out and about. They're moving around. Cases are going to climb. But hospitalizations are down, ventilators are down, deaths are down. So remember that. So now moving forward, I want to give you the definition by the state of what an outbreak is. Okay? When you hear the headline or the news comes on, ladies and gentlemen, tonight there were 4 outbreaks reported across the state of Michigan. As far as what is meant by an outbreak, gentleman with Health and Human Services, I believe it is, I should have that in front of me. But anyway, said the definition is relative to local context, but generally defined as 2 or more cases with a shared exposure. Not 50, not 10, not 20, 2. Remember that when you hear outbreak in such and such a territory. The definition is generally 2 or more. 2 or more. Not 10, not 20, not 30. When I hear outbreak, I think run for the hills. 2 or more. People aged, you might have seen this. This is from a few days ago, but I think it all plays together with that information as you're hearing the headlines and you're reading the news and you're thinking, oh my gosh, the COVID is coming. People aged 20 to 29 make up the age bracket with the second most COVID-19 cases overall in Michigan, according to raw numbers. Those who are aged 50 to 59 have the most cases overall, 13,588. But the younger bracket of 20-somethings is right behind at 13,370. Now, these are just cases, right? You got the COVID in one way or another. Oakland, Livingston, Genesee counties reported a steep increase in COVID-19 cases, et cetera, et cetera. It was a group of individuals, 15 to 19, because they had a large activity, a gathering of some sort. When you look at cases per million, the 80-plus age bracket has the most cases in the state, or 17,383. The 40 to 49 age range comes in next, 10,763 per million, and the other age bracket, older than 19 years old, all hover or below 10,000 cases per million. When it comes to deaths, the 80-plus age range is affected the most in raw numbers, deaths per million. Once again, why are we putting recovering COVID patients into nursing homes? As I understand it, Michigan is the only state still doing that. But the governor has rejected efforts and vetoed bills that would say, hey, let's get them out of nursing homes. I don't understand it. Just over half of the 3,836 COVID-19 cases reported so far in August are tied to the Metro Detroit area. Makes sense. Most people. 11 days into August, 3,836 cases have been reported across the state. Oakland, Macomb, Wayne counties, as well as Detroit, make up 52% of those numbers. At the bottom of the list, 8 counties with no cases to report in August: Missaukee, Ascota, Baraga, Ogama, Luce, Osceola, Elkona, and Keweenaw. And today, the state reported, and this might be this is from yesterday. Yesterday, the state reported 796 new cases statewide with 7 deaths. Remember, the COVID is not an automatic death sentence. If you are in that 65, 70 plus range, we got to be really careful, obviously. And changing subjects slightly, vote by mail. And I told you this was a lightning round, so we're jumping around on things. One of the things I thought was interesting is I know there's a lot of concern about that, and I believe it's warranted, all right? To try and take a brand new system and just shove it down everybody's throats is tough. People aren't sure what's happening. Our system might not be ready for it. But, as I try to always be fair, but it is the law in the state of Michigan now because of the citizens' petition that was on the ballot, and the people of Michigan voted for it. So it's now law, whether you like it or not, and so we've got to work with it, right? That's the way I look at it. It's got problems, but it is the law, so let's do it right. And many of the issues that people have is, well, my vote won't be counted if it gets there late. And so now some are saying, well, we need to extend it to whenever the vote comes in, we can vote for it. Well, do we want our elections running weeks after the election day? I don't think we do. And I'll get to my point on this in a second. According to information from the clerks of 15 of Michigan's largest cities and townships, about 1,200 completed primary absentee ballots arrived at their offices through the mail after Election Day. And that's out of 2.5 million voters voting, 1,200 late ballots across the state. Not a terrible amount. But now, some will say every vote should count, and I'm with you. So here's the part that I always find very interesting because, you know, we in the United States of America, a lot of times we just kind of push our responsibilities off onto, say, other people. And when it comes, this is what I say about voting. We basically have one job as an American citizen, and that's to get up off our butt and vote. And we've had problems getting people to vote for years, right? And that's one reason, one of the reasons that people wanted to push vote by mail and that sort of thing. But here's the part of that you need to start filtering in, because remember, it's law. How we implement it still has to be, worked on. So this is the part about vote by mail. I was chatting with some clerk in the 101st the other day. A couple of things. If you're going to vote by mail, you have a responsibility to make sure your vote gets there. You do? Yes. How do you do that, Jack? I'm going to mail it. Don't wait till the last day. Fill it out, mail it in. Give the United States Postal Service time to get it there. Or when you run into the grocery store, stop by your clerk's office and they have drop boxes. Drop it in. Or stop in one day and say, hi, clerk, I've never met you. Here's my ballot. You can do that. So even though it's mail in, as they call it, doesn't mean you have to mail it in. You could walk it in. Now, I know there's some people out there that are invalid, they're homebound, whatever. I get that. So then a family member says, hey, let's make sure you get it in the mail in time, or whatever. You see what I'm saying? So we can complain and moan, and we have a right to, and there are some things definitely to complain and moan about. But remember, when it comes to, if you choose to use the mail system, I went and voted, walked in and cast my ballot. But if you choose to use that, AKA absentee ballot or mail-in ballot, you have responsibility to get that vote in. Make sense? Mail it early. As soon as you get it, turn it around. Send it in. Give the Postal Service time to get it in. I think the law says what even the envelopes need to change. Anyway, point is, you have a responsibility. All right, so let's consider that as we move towards the November election. That yes, we citizens have a responsibility too in making sure our vote counts. Something to consider, something to discuss. All right, lots of information there, lots of interesting things. An outbreak is 2 or more. Just remember that. When you hear these headlines, stop. Don't react. Think, read, follow up. Because so much of what's going on in our state right now is emotion and fear. And we don't want fear, all right? So I want you to be educated and thoughtful on all of this. So again, with the mail-in voting, I'm sure there's somebody going to say, no, it's whatever. It's law in the state of Michigan. We have to make sure that we enforce it and make it happen in a correct way. And some of that falls on you and me, the electorate. Okay? All right, I'm out of here. Tomorrow is a COVID committee, and it's going to be a real interesting one. We've got the director of DHHS in, and we're discussing the contract tracing contract. So it'll be interesting to hear what the director has to say. So I will chat with you again on Friday, unless there's breaking developments. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.